They won't always say it outright. They won't look you in the eye and admit they're jealous. No, jealousy is a quiet enemy. It dresses itself up in politeness and sugar-coated compliments and half-hearted applause. It whispers through clenched teeth and smiles that don't reach the eyes. Jealousy doesn't always shout. It murmurs in carefully chosen words meant to confuse you, to tame your joy, and to dilute your confidence. That's why you have to learn to listen closely. Because when jealousy speaks, it speaks in disguise. One of the ways you'll hear it is when someone gives you a compliment that doesn't quite feel right. They say something like, "You're doing well," for someone like you. Or maybe they say, "You must have gotten lucky." They smile while saying it, maybe even pat your back, but the tone carries a bitterness that can't be hidden. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe it. You'll start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you did just get lucky. Maybe you don't deserve to be where you are. That's exactly what they want. You see, people who are jealous don't always want what you have, they just don't want you to have it. They struggle to celebrate you because your growth reminds them of their own neglect. Your blessing reminds them of their delay. Your movement reminds them of their stagnancy. So rather than confront their own inaction, they turn on you with subtle insults disguised as encouragement. That's why the words sound like praise but leave you feeling small. That's why their tone is cheerful but their spirit is bitter. Jealousy never travels alone, it comes with confusion. And you must understand, not everyone around you claps because they care. Some people clap just loud enough to blend in with the crowd. They don't want to stand out as envious, but they can't bear to see you shine. So they dress their criticism as concern. They wrap their insecurity in statements like, "You're doing too much." They say, "Don't let it get to your head." But what they're really saying is, "Your success makes me uncomfortable." It can happen in families. It can happen in friendships. It can happen among people who once celebrated you when you were beneath them, but now can't stand to see you equal or ahead. Jealousy doesn't always come from strangers. It often comes from those who knew you when you were struggling and now can't handle who you've become. So instead of growing with you, they grow bitter beside you. And they use their words to keep you tethered to who you used to be. But God didn't bring you this far to doubt yourself. You didn't work through the night, pray through the pain, and push through the pressure just to shrink because someone else is uncomfortable. You didn't carry your cross in silence just to hide your crown in shame. No, you are where you are because grace carried you, because favor found you, because faith sustained you. And you don't owe an apology for that. Don't let the voices of jealousy drown out the truth God put in your heart. Don't let their backhanded compliments cause you to backtrack your calling. Just because they say it's sweet doesn't mean it's sincere. Just because it sounds humble doesn't mean it's holy. Some people bless you with their words but curse you with their heart. That's why you must stay rooted in discernment. You've got to know who's clapping from a pure place and who's clapping just loud enough to cover their resentment. And listen, when people say you got lucky, let them talk. They didn't see the nights you cried. They didn't see the times you failed and got back up. They didn't see the prayers you whispered when no one was around. Luck had nothing to do with it. That was endurance. That was faith. That was obedience. That was God. So when jealous people speak, don't argue. Don't defend. Don't shrink. Just recognize what it is. Let their words fall to the ground. Because your identity is not in their tone. Your purpose is not in their opinion. And your calling does not need their confirmation. There's a certain kind of voice that shows up right when you start believing again. Right when you start getting your confidence back. Right when you lift your head after a hard season and begin to say, maybe this is possible after all. That voice doesn't scream. It doesn't argue. It creeps in quietly, gently even, and says, don't get your hopes up. And while it sounds like concern, it's really fear speaking, fear wrapped in jealousy. A voice sent to plant doubt in a heart that's just beginning to dream again. It always shows up at the door of your breakthrough, when you've started making progress, when you've stepped out in faith, when something new is budding in your life. And instead of cheering you on, they pull you aside with a serious look and tell you just be realistic. You don't want to be disappointed, but what they don't understand is this: you've already been disappointed. You've already been through the fire. You've already cried the tears in silence and kept going. Hope isn't dangerous to you, it's holy. It's how you survived. Jealous people won't tell you not to succeed outright. They'll just try to smother your belief before it takes root. They can't stand the way your hope stretches beyond their limitations. It unsettles them because they've learned to live in fear. And when you choose faith, it exposes their own refusal to move. So rather than deal with what's holding them back, they try to pull you back too. Not by force, but with gentle warnings meant to sound wise. But there's no wisdom in fear, no power in playing small, no victory in lowering your expectations just to fit the room you've outgrown. The truth is, they don't want you to hope because they've stopped hoping. They don't want you to believe because they've buried their own belief. You remind them of who they used to be before life hardened them, before disappointments discouraged them, before jealousy took root. You're not just moving forward, you're shining a light on everything they've been hiding in the dark. And light always exposes. So don't take it personally when they say, don't get your hopes up. Don't take it to heart when they try to talk you down from the mountain God told you to climb. They're not fighting you, they're fighting the mirror your boldness has become. They look at you and see every dream they never chased, every opportunity they ignored, every door they never knocked on. And rather than deal with that, they try to dim your hope. But you've got to guard it like treasure. Because hope is what moves mountains. It's what keeps you walking when there's no sign of the promise. It's what lets you believe that the valley doesn't last forever. Hope is a language heaven understands. And when you speak it, all of hell gets nervous. That's why jealousy tries to shut it down early. Because once hope settles in your soul, you start walking different. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the crowd to cheer. You start trusting what God said, not what people see. And jealous people hate that because they want you to wait for their approval. They want you to move at their pace. But God doesn't call you to walk in circles. He calls you to move forward, even if it offends those still stuck. And let's be honest, when someone says, don't get your hopes up, what they're really saying is, I don't think it will work for you. That's not a reflection of your potential. That's a reflection of their perspective. They're speaking from the lens of their own failure, but you don't live according to what they've seen. You live according to what God has promised. And when He gives you a word, you hold on to it. When He gives you a vision, you run with it. Even if the whole world says, be careful, because walking by faith will always look reckless to those who walk by fear. Shrink your dreams just because someone else doesn't believe in them. Don't silence your hope to make someone else feel comfortable in their doubt. You've come too far. You've cried too many nights. You've fought too many battles. You've prayed through too many storms to let a jealous voice stop you now. You hold your head up. You lift your hands. And you hope again, because every time you do, heaven notices. And the God who gave you the vision is faithful to bring it to pass even when others can't see it yet. There's a phrase you'll hear often from jealous people, a phrase that sounds harmless on the surface but carries a weight meant to undermine your efforts. They say, I would have done it differently. It sounds like advice, it sounds like a perspective. But listen closely, because it's often more than that. It's a subtle judgment wrapped in envy. It's a way to say your way isn't right without saying it outright. When they say this, they aren't offering wisdom, they're offering doubt. Jealous people want the success, but they don't want the sacrifice. They want the reward without the risk. So when they see you moving forward, taking chances, making decisions, they immediately think, if I were in your shoes, I'd do it another way. But that other way rarely comes with action. It's easy to say I'd have done it differently when you haven't had to do it at all. It's easy to critique from the sidelines when you haven't walked the path. So this phrase is often a shield they use to protect their own insecurities and a sword to cut at your confidence. There's a danger in listening to those words too much because it can pull you off your course. You might start to doubt your decisions, wondering if you're making mistakes. You might start to question your judgment even though you've prayed and sought wisdom. Remember, not every opinion deserves a seat at your table, especially when it's born from jealousy. People who say, "I would have done it differently," often speak from a place of fear or regret. They want to rewrite your story because they can't write their own. It's important to understand this. Every path is unique. The way God calls one person to walk won't look like the way He calls another. Your journey is yours, and it will be filled with choices, some right, some wrong, but all necessary for your growth. When jealous voices tell you how they would have done it, they don't see the whole picture. They don't see the prayers, the battles, the tears, or the quiet moments of surrender. They only see the surface, and they judge what they cannot understand. And sometimes those words come from people who want credit without the work. They want the outcome but don't want the process. They want to take part in your victory without paying the price. So they throw out critiques like, "If it were me, I'd handle it this way," hoping you'll falter and open the door for them to step in. They want to control your story because they feel powerless in their own. But the truth is, God doesn't need your approval and you don't need theirs. When God leads, He leads with a purpose, even when others don't understand. Your decisions, your mistakes, your victories, they all fit into His plan. When you listen too much to jealous voices, you risk losing sight of that plan. You risk turning away from your calling just because someone else disagrees with your methods. The enemy loves to whisper doubt through jealous people. He loves to seed confusion with those simple words, "I would have done it differently." It's a trap to make you question the direction God gave you. But don't fall into it. Stand firm in your faith. Stand firm in your choices. Know that every step you take, God is guiding even when the path looks uncertain, even when the critics talk. Remember, faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting God when you don't. It's about moving forward even when the way isn't clear. When jealous people say they do it differently, what they're really saying is that they don't trust your faith. But you don't have to prove your faith to them. You only need to live it out. You only need to walk the road God has set before you. And in time, your results will speak louder than their words ever could. Your success, your growth, your peace, that's the proof that God's way is the right way for you. You don't need to defend yourself to the critics. You just need to keep going. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because what God has for you is greater than what anyone else imagines. So when you hear, "I would have done it differently," don't let it shake you. Don't let it cause you to stumble. Thank them for their opinion, but keep your eyes on the one who called you. Keep walking in faith, knowing that God's plan for your life is perfect even if it looks different than theirs. There is a question that jealous people love to ask, often disguised with a smile or a light laugh, but underneath it carries a sting that can wound deeper than you realize. They say, "Why you?" It sounds innocent enough, like a casual curiosity. "Why you got that chance?" Or "Why you got that break?" But it's not a question born out of wonder or joy. It's a question rooted in doubt and disbelief. It's a question meant to unsettle your confidence and shake your faith. When someone asks you, "Why you?" they aren't looking for an answer. They're not interested in your story or your journey. They don't want to hear about your prayers, your struggles, your long nights, or your sacrifices. No, they ask because they want to express the thought they dare not say outright, that they don't think you deserve what you've been given. They question your worth because they can't reconcile your blessings with what they believe about you. And this kind of question can feel like a blow, especially when it comes from people you know, from those who have watched you for years and now can't believe you've risen. It's as if they expected you to stay in your place, to remain quiet and unnoticed. When you break free from the limits others placed on you, when you step into your calling and your destiny, jealous people ask, "Why you?" Because they're wrestling with their own disappointment. But let me remind you today, God does not choose the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. Your calling is not about what people think you deserve. It's about what God has planned for you. He saw something in you before anyone else did. He saw your potential before the world saw your success. He knew your heart before you ever took a step forward. And that is why He lifted you. When jealous people ask why you, they are trying to make you doubt the divine hand that has been upon your life. They want you to question your identity and your purpose. But don't let their doubts become your doubts. Your identity is not found in their opinions or their disbelief. Your worth is not measured by their acceptance or their approval. It is found in the promise that God has written over your life. Think about the stories in Scripture where God chose the unlikely, the unexpected, the rejected. David was just a shepherd boy when God called him to be king. Moses was a man with a stutter who led a nation. Esther was a young woman who became queen for such a time as this. God's ways are not our ways. He lifts the humble and sets the lowly on high. So when someone says, "Why you?" remind yourself that God's choice does not require human validation. Jealous people ask this question because they feel small next to your light. Your success, your blessings, your progress, they highlight their own failures and missed opportunities. Rather than celebrate with you, they try to bring you down to their level of doubt. But you don't have to shrink. You don't have to explain your journey to those who refuse to understand it. And sometimes the question, "Why you?" comes with a tone that sounds like a joke, like they're just teasing. But beneath the laughter is a heart that struggles to accept your rise. It's a heart that resents your growth because it reflects their own stagnation. When you hear that question, know that it is less about you and more about their own brokenness. So what do you do when someone asks, "Why you?" You answer with faith, not fear. You answer with confidence, not confusion. You say, "Because God chose me, you don't need to explain how or why. Your life is the answer. Your progress is the testimony. Your faith is the proof." Keep walking in your purpose even when others question your right to be there. Keep moving forward even when people doubt your path, because God's hand is on you. His plan for you is perfect, and no question born out of jealousy can change that. When you begin to rise, when your blessings start to show and your life begins to change, there will be voices that try to diminish what you've accomplished. They will say things like, "It's not that impressive," or "Anyone can do that." On the surface, these words might sound casual or even supportive, but they carry a subtle poison designed to chip away at your confidence and minimize your breakthrough. These are the words jealous people use to keep you from celebrating your own victories. You see, when someone dismisses your success, it's rarely because they truly believe it's ordinary. Instead, it's because they're uncomfortable acknowledging that you've surpassed them, that you've moved beyond what they thought possible. Their dismissal is a way to protect their pride and soothe their wounded spirit. They want to convince themselves and you that what you've achieved is nothing special, so they don't have to face their own lack of progress. This dismissal is a silent way of saying, "I couldn't do it, and I can't stand that you did." They try to normalize your achievement, making it seem common or easy, because the reality of your success challenges their own doubts and fears. When you start to shine, it forces others to confront their own darkness. And jealousy hates being exposed. But here's the truth: your journey is not ordinary. Your breakthrough is not typical. Every step you took, every late night, every sacrifice, every prayer, it all matters. And no one can take that from you. When people say, "Anyone can do that," they are ignoring the sweat, the tears, and the faith that fueled your success. They are ignoring the mountains you climbed when no one was watching. You must learn to see past their words. You must not let their dismissiveness become your own doubt, because when you believe their lies, you give them power over your destiny. You start to question your worth. You start to minimize your progress. You start to settle for less than what God has promised you. Remember, God doesn't measure your success by how loud others applaud or how many people notice. He measures it by faithfulness, by obedience, by the heart behind your efforts. What God blesses is never small, no matter what people say. Your victory is significant in His eyes, and that's all that truly matters. There will always be those who try to dim your light by calling it ordinary. They want you to believe that your story is no different than anyone else's. But your story is your story. Your journey is unique. Your breakthrough is divine. And you must honor it by standing firm in your truth. It's important to remember that when someone says it's not that impressive, they are often revealing their own insecurity. They can't celebrate you because they haven't celebrated themselves. They can't acknowledge your rise because they haven't risen themselves. Their words are a reflection of their own battles, not a reflection of your worth. So when you hear those dismissive comments, don't waste your energy trying to convince them otherwise. You don't need to defend your success. You don't need to prove your journey, your life, your growth, your peace. These are your answers. Let your results speak louder than their words ever could. Keep moving forward with confidence. Keep believing in the work God is doing in you. Because the greatest testimony is not what people say, it's what God does through you. And no jealous whisper can silence the power of a life lived in faith. When you begin to grow, when you begin to rise, there will come a moment when those around you start to say, "You've changed." It's a phrase that sounds simple, even like a compliment at first. But if you listen closely, it carries a weight, sometimes a judgment, and sometimes a lament. Jealous people often say you've changed, not because you have become proud or arrogant, but because you have grown beyond the limits they had set for you. Growth makes people uncomfortable, especially those who are still standing still. When you change, when you evolve, you become a reflection of what they are not willing to become. You start to live with purpose, to speak with confidence, to walk in faith, and suddenly the people who once knew you feel like strangers to the person you are becoming. That discomfort can lead to jealousy, and jealousy often manifests as criticism. You've changed, they say, as if growth is something to fear rather than celebrate. But let me tell you this, growth is the sign of life. It is the evidence that God is moving in your life. You're not meant to stay where you started. You're not meant to live in yesterday's limitations. You are meant to become all that God created you to be. And sometimes that means leaving behind the people who cannot keep up with your destiny. When jealous people say you've changed, what they are really saying is, I don't like it. They don't like that you no longer fit into the box they put you in. They don't like that you are no longer willing to settle for less. They don't like that you have outgrown their expectations, and sometimes it's because they are afraid you will leave them behind. This phrase is often used to guilt you into shrinking back into the person you were before. They want you to forget the dreams you dared to dream. They want you to silence the voice inside that tells you to keep moving forward. But you must remember, the person you were is not the person you are called to be. Change is not betrayal, it is obedience. It is faith in action. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you don't have. And if you want to live fully, to love deeply, and to fulfill your purpose, you must grow. You must change. That's the price of progress. And those who love you will celebrate your growth, not condemn it. Those who care will encourage your journey, not try to pull you back. So when you hear, "You've changed," don't take it as a curse. Take it as a sign that you are becoming who you were meant to be. Let it remind you that your life is moving forward, even if others are stuck in the past. And if those words come from a place of jealousy, remember that their struggle is not your burden to carry. Stay true to your path. Stay faithful to your calling. Keep growing, keep changing, keep becoming. Because the greatest gift you can give to the world is the best version of yourself. And no jealous voice can stop the transformation God is working in your life. Your growth is your glory. Your change is your strength. And your future is brighter than any fear of what others say.